So hello everybody, today we'll start a new poem, that is Fog. This is a very short poem, okay. So let's start with the introduction of the poet and the introduction of the poem, right. So it is written by Carl Augustus Sandburg. He was an American poet, writer and editor. He won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 for his poetry and 1 for his biography of Abraham Lincoln. He has written the biography of Abraham Lincoln, and he had won the prize for that. He wrote poems like Grass, Analysis, Chicago, and there are many more poems, and one of them is Fog, right? So if I talk about the introduction of the poem, this is a very small poem written by Carl Sandburg. He has described the arrival of fog. ठीक है, I hope everyone knows fog क्या होता है. तो he has described the arrival of fog and he has compared he has beautifully compared the arrival of fog. He has beautifully compared the fog with the cat. Okay, so how come he compared the fog with the cat? Let's read the poem. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. So here the poet is saying, first of all, he is describing fog. What is fog? So if all of us knows what is fog, generally we see fog in the winter time. Okay? So these are the tiny water droplets which are defined or which are dispersed which are present in the atmosphere, right. Next is, it is generally seen during the winter season. Now here the poet is comparing, the poet describes the advancement of fog towards the city, okay. So he defines how come the fog reaches the city and how he compared the fog with the cat. Let's read the explanation for that. So the poet is saying, he describes the advancement of fog towards the city and the harbor. I hope harbor, हम सबको पता है, harbor is a place where ships parked. Okay. Next is, he says that the fog comes like a cat, comes to its little feet. तो fog जो है जिस तरीके से unnoticed जो है वो आती है, जिस तरीके से cat जो है हमारे घर में unnoticed आती है, तो he says that like the cat comes and the fog comes like a cat, comes to its little feet of a cat. This means the fog advances towards the city very slowly and calmly, just like a cat. Okay, so the fog is coming towards the city very slowly, very calmly, very softly, जिस तरीके से एक cat जो है वो move कर आती है. Next is, one never knows how and when the fog will enter the city. किसी को भी पता नहीं होता कि कब और कहाँ पे fog जो है वो city में enter होगा, ठीक है. जैसे कि हम cat के बारे में define करें तो no one knows कि how and when the cat comes or enter our house. Okay. Next is, therefore fog is compared to the cat which enters our house in an unpredictable manner. Next he says that the fog sits over the whole of the city as a cat sits silently by manner. Okay. So the fog, जिस तरीके से fog धीरे से आकर पूरी city में disperse हो जाता है, पूरी city में फैल जाता है, जैसे एक cat जो है वो बहुत silently आकर एक जगह जिस manner में बैठती है, right. Next he says that the frog, okay, we are done with this, silently by folding her legs behind itself and looks around the nearby places and things. Okay, so here it is defining, it sits looking over harbor and city. So it sits looking over harbor and city. This means what? Ki the cat comes into your house and it sits very calmly by folding her legs, और वो जिस तरीके से पूरी चीज़ को, पूरे हाउस को एग्जामिन कर रही होती है, ठीक है, इधर उधर देख रही होती है, वैसे ही फॉग जो है वो बड़ी कामली आकर पूरी सिटी में फैल जाता है, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज, आफ्टर अ वाइल द फॉग लीव्स द सिटी एंड मूव ऑन द साइलेंट हाउंचेस. हाउंचेस क्या होते हैं? अगर आपने कैट डॉग्स को देखा हो तो वो जिस तरीके से अपने पैरों को फोल्ड कर बैठते हैं, तो वो जो फोल्डिंग मोशन होता है, दोज आर द हाउंचेस. ओके, सो यहाँ पे जिस मैनर में उन्होंने उसको डिफाइन कर रखा है, दैट इज गिवन ओवर हेयर. And then it moves on very silently, okay, without again being noticed to everyone. Okay, the poet says so because it is a natural phenomena that fog does not stay at a place for long and leaves the place after a few hours. Okay, so the poet says this because just like a cat, it comes very silently to your house and it leaves very silently after some time. It does not stay there for a long time. वैसे ही fog जो होता है वो भी क्या करता है, मतलब fog भी हमने अगर notice किया है तो early morning time पे, if I talk about India, early morning time पे winters में हमें fog visible होगा and without being noticed to anyone, it leaves the place. Okay, next. So here also the poet says that just like a cat, the fog leaves the place very silently without being noticed to everyone. Okay, so this is the explanation of this paragraph and the poem is just this much only. Okay, this is a very small poem. Next we will talk about the literary devices. Okay, the figures of speech, the literary devices. First of all, there is metaphor used in the poem. Now what is metaphor? I hope I have explained it in your previous classes. Metaphor is basically whenever we do the comparison without using the word like or as. So in this poem we have compared fog with the cat. Okay, so the fog has been compared to the cat, like if I say on little cat feet. Okay? Next is the rhyming scheme. There is no rhyming scheme in the poem. अगर किसी भी poem में कोई rhyming scheme नहीं होती है तो उसको हम free verse बोलते हैं. For example, if I say अगर मैं comes को A define करती हूँ, feet does not rhyme with comes, so it is B. Again, looking does not rhyme with anything, C, right? City, haunches, on. So यहाँ पे सारी चीज़ों में all the things are different. That's why there is no rhyming scheme in the poem, and if there is no rhyming scheme in the poem, then it is known as a free verse. Okay. Next, there is the use of enjambment. Enjambment क्या होता है? जब हम कभी भी किसी भी statement को 2 या more than 2 lines में use करते हैं without using any punctuation mark. For example, the fog comes on the little cat feet. It is actually a statement. यहाँ पे कोई punctuation mark नहीं दे रखा है. This is known as enjambment. In the rest of the lines also, it sits looking over the harbor and city on silent haunches. Again, there is a use of enjambment. So there are two statements which are continuing in 2 or more than 2 lines. That is known as enjambment. ठीक है? Next is personification. So personification क्या होता है? Whenever we give human qualities to a non-living thing, that is known as personification. So here fog has been personified because यहाँ पे fog comes and it sits. यहाँ पे fog को एक cat से compare किया गया है, एक living organism से compare किया गया है, उसकी qualities दे रहे हैं. That's why there is a use of personification. Okay, so this is the short and sweet poem Fog. Okay, that's all for this poem. Thank you.